Good night, Belizeans at home and abroad. This is the Belizean Affairs Show number 200 and number 322. 322. My name is Leonard Brackett. Uh, I'll be your temporary chairman until the chairman shows up. And in the interest of timeliness, I'm just going to go ahead and do our preliminaries in regards to saying the prayer and uh, doing a short Bible reading, after which, by then, I think the chairman might be available and he will take on the show from there. Uh, I'll just bow my head for a couple of minutes. Divine, loving Father, thou who art our Creator and the Creator of heaven and earth and all that in them are, into thy hands we commend ourselves, asking thee that thou must continue to bless us, that thou would accept our expression of gratitude for having given us the privilege of life, and secondly, the opportunity to still be alive among our family members, friends, and loved ones. Please bless our family members, each and every one of them, as they are each mentioned by name and number. Please bless our friends and other loved ones too, loving Father. We pray that thou must bless our country of Belize, its people and leadership, that thou would bless this country of the United States, its people and leadership as well, and that thou would continue to bless the rest of humanity, each and every one of them, regardless of their circumstance. Those who are in war zones, those who are in tornadoes and earthquakes and hurricanes and other pestilence. We pray that thou must bless us all, Heavenly Father, and that thou would bless this program too, as we proceed tonight with our endeavor, that we may bring some worthy thoughts and input to our brothers and sisters, Belizeans at home and abroad. For we ask these mercies in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you very much. I see the chairman is working in the background, so I'll just give him a few minutes. Oh, he's here with us now. Um, Good night, Mr. Chairman.
Good night, Mr. Brackett.
Uh, I was about to do the reading, if you don't mind,
Go ahead,
before
sir.
I turn it back over to you. Okay, thank you, sir. Uh, I will read a passage from Job chapter 25 and starting at verse 1. It reads as follows. Then answered Bildad the Shuhite and said, Dominion and fear are with him. He maketh peace in his high places. Is there any number of his enemies, and upon whom doth not his light rise? How then can man be justified with God's, or how can he be clean that is born of a woman? Behold, even to even to the moon, and it shineth, and it shineth not. You, the stars, are not pure in his sight. How much less is man, that is, a, a woman, and the son of man, which is a woman, or which is a worm. In other words, this is giving us a concept or an idea that human beings believe ourselves to be the most sentient or knowledgeable entities or beings in this universe, when in fact we as human beings have spent not even one iota or ounce of energy to bring about our own existence, much less the existence of this world this solar system or galaxy or many of the other billions and trillions of galaxies that are out there. Uh, in the eyes of our Creator, we should consider ourselves as being puny and almost insignificant, except for the fact that He created us for His own purposes. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Brackett,
You're welcome, sir.
and good night to you, the people at home and abroad. Welcoming you to this 322nd edition of Belizean Affair. Tonight, I specifically want to speak about the 13th Amendment, and I want to bring this not only to educate you, but to show you how past and present government bastardize our Constitution and violate your fundamental rights. Now, we all know that the present government wants to change the law by passing a 13th Amendment because of the ruling of two cases, which the right thing to do is to appeal the ruling and take it all the way to the CCJ if necessary to set a precedent on the ruling that was made by the High Court. Now, I want to say this tonight. The present government, like the past, has double standard. And tonight I want to prove to you that this law that is being made in violation of our constitutional right, Section 6, which guarantees equal protection under the law to each and every Belizean citizen. This new 13th Amendment is being made only for some of the Belizean people, specifically people living in Southside. And I'm not even going to say gang members only, because if implemented, this law will violate the rights of all Belizean people living on the South Side. As you have known, the Prime Minister and the past commissioner, as well as the Minister of Police, had previously spoken about the Bukele move that he used to send gang members to jail without ever going before a court. Now, I want to say this to you. When the past government had tried to do this, this same present government was up in arms to
Mm-hmm.
stop it. But that is why I want to show you the double standards and how they discriminate. So, to start off the show, let me go to the first step, because segment by segment, I want to break it down to you so you get a chance to see for yourself what is happening here in Belize. Let's go to the first step.
So the first amendment to the law that we are proposing is that the restriction of the granting of bail be limited to those three categories of prevalent offenses. But even then, we in the People's United Party felt that it was of utmost importance in relation to those three offenses that there also be a proviso that would once again vest in the magistrate the authority to grant bail for special extenuating circumstances to be recorded in writing. We must trust that our magistrates, like our Supreme Court judges, have the wisdom and the knowledge to know who deserves to be granted bail and who does not. Repeat offenders who have previous or prior convictions, for instance, ought not to be granted bail. But a pregnant woman or a high school student with no previous convictions ought not to be treated like a common criminal the way they are today.
The clear signal from the government yesterday, the Minister of National Security, speaking on behalf of the government, was that they were certainly prepared to look at the law, to review the law, to revise the law. And so this is our contribution to that work. And I have no reason to believe that that will not be taken into account in good faith. So we will submit it to the ministry. The next step is for us to submit it to the Ministry of National Security, the Minister, as well as to the Director of Public Prosecutions, as I said, and the Attorney General's Office, the Solicitor General, as our contribution to the discussion, as our recommendations for amending the law. So that would be the next step.
In no way are we trying to take credit for the public pressure that COLA and that FIS have brought to the government. We're not sitting here to take credit for that, Jules. We're not trying to take credit away from anybody. Those people are 100% entitled to take credit for that. Let me tell you that. Along with the police department, members of the police department who are out there in solidarity for Gino Peck. That cannot be understated. Those people deserve credit. What we are doing today is the responsible thing, the thing that your government is not doing, which is to propose the law, which is to amend the law. That is what we are doing here today. We are making proposals to change the law now. Not 2 years from now, some more people could get locked up. No.
People at home and abroad, 10 years ago when the present government was the opposition, this is what they had to say. How they wanted to protect the constitutional right of every citizen of Belize, especially when one of their own from the police force, Mr. Peck, got caught up in the gun law. There was police officers who was fighting for his innocence. Police officers who was fighting for the law to be changed. So I want you to keep this clearly in mind, because I want to show you how these same individuals are now trying to violate that same constitutional right that they were standing up for. And they even want to go further. They want to go further than the past government. Mr. Brackett, I go to you for a quick thought on that.
My first thought would be that the good gentleman who was speaking back then, well, at least one of them, Mr. Karim Musa, and who is now also the police minister as an elected official now as part of the present government, is a lawyer. So back then, he was advocating as somebody who has a legal background and knowledge, should be advocating on behalf of the general populace. Now he is the main proponent of this concept because his new police commissioner is asking him to go ahead and not only create another SOE, which they have just done recently, but to make it so that they can go ahead and do a 1 year, 12 months, not as a 1 month effort that they used to do before, or probably in a 6 months as someone else was proposing, but a 1 year. Why? Because it's not going to affect him, or presumably none of his children or other family members. Because just like how back then the police was looking after the interests of the other police when the police got caught up into the gun laws, he would be looking after his family members if they get caught up into this new laws that they're trying to make, and he will find a way to have them exculpated and or exonerated. That's how these jackals they operate. They create these bogus laws, they put them on a book, they are told in no uncertain terms, as if they have to be told anyhow, because as I said, a lot of them are lawyers, some of them are senior lawyers. So they know that they're violating the Constitution and people's rights. And they know that they're not supposed to be making these bastardized laws, because if those laws get challenged, they're going to be ruled, or they should be ruled, as null and void according to what the Constitution says. But then again, we have judges who are currently ruling not according to the Constitution. They're ruling according to the wishes of the government. So then if they, the government, have compliant judges who are derogating their own judicial responsibility, that is to be an independent, equal branch of the government with unlimited jurisdiction to hear cases and render justice, and they are suborning that justice to the whim of the politicians, them and the government officials, then our system is becoming bastardized and undermined. And that's my concern, that these guys previously pretended, well, not only pretended, I presume that they knew exactly back then what was right and what is wrong. So therefore, I presume also that now there should be knowing what is right and what is wrong, because nothing has changed in terms of what's right and what's wrong. So if they knew what was right then, they should know what's right now. And if they knew what was wrong then, they should know what is wrong now. I don't think they are getting that old by a few years, that they have become senile and therefore are losing their sense of proportion, or their sense of knowledge, or their fidelity to the Constitution, or their love for their countrymen. The very same people who vote for them and put them in office, they're just a bunch of rascals who know that the laws that they're making, the laws are made by the privileged few for the welfare and the benefit of the privileged few, and not for me and you. And that's basically the sad part of it. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Brackett.
You're welcome,
But
sir.
it goes to prove here, the gun law, the draconian gun law that is unconstitutional, was supposed to be made for gangbangers, but it was used retroactively against the citizens of Belize when you had grandmother and students getting locked up. Now, if that did not work to curb crime, how can we expect the present government to now want to use this 13th Amendment, as they say, to help in the prevention of crime, which is more drastic and will take away more fundamental rights than the gun law did.
Exactly.
So, to go back in time as to what we just played, let's hear from one of the citizens.
No, we had a press conference. We are having some meetings with our legal advisor, and from there we'll take it by next week. We'll get a call from us to show forward where we are going with it.
Okay, when this law was first amended, though, it was the PUP that took up the gauntlet and that basically informed the people that it had many flaws to it, that it put many people, it could put many innocent people in jail. Now you're the one who has picked up on that. If you were criticized of being political in your plight or in your effort, how would you respond?
No way, I'm a grassroots activist from day one. Everyone that knows me will say that about me. I was always vocal. I support many organizations, from the birds to the trees to the fishes in the sea. I support everything that is right for my country.
As we can see here from the questioning of the news person, this gentleman is saying that he supports what is right. And as you heard her say, the PUPs were the first one to be protective of the Constitution, to make sure that people did not go to jail innocently. Now, look at where we are presently. And this is why it's so important to go back to show you the people at home and abroad the discriminative action of the present government wanting to create this 13th Amendment only for special citizens of Belize and the South Side. I go to you, Mr. Brackett.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would ask that you indulge me in exercising your special accorded privilege. Oh man, shucks. So that I can read a small portion here of. Oh man. Okay, just give me one second, sir. I had it and I went ahead and touched the surface of the thing before I was ready to read it. Okay. I want to read a portion of section 6 that you just alluded to just now. So I did the same thing all over again. Mr. Chairman, could you just, oh yes, I went too far. Could you just make a comment just so I could go back and find this thing because I touched the surface again accidentally and it just went wild.
Okay, Mr. Brackett, while you're looking to that, let's go to the second clip.
Amend the law so that the guilty go to jail and in a sense stay free, because then many Belizeans can, right now, it could happen to me, could happen to many others that never been to jail, could end up in that position. So the last one touched me was a grandmother that went to jail. She spent, I think she was in her late 50s. And she broke down in tears, telling me how her experience going to jail. She would have always said to people that she never been to jail. And the experience for her was rough. You have some instance where one of the parties acknowledges his weapon and still the family is victimized by that law. So,
but while we have cases like these where we have innocent people, legitimately innocent people suffer, on the flip side of the coin, you also have people, before the law was amended, a lot of guilty people were getting away with assault, aggravated assault with a weapon.
Well, that's where the justice system failed. It's not the people, it's the justice system, and that's what we are targeting right now, the system itself, because it's not applied evenly across the board to everyone. You know, if you have money, you don't know what happened. Mr. Verde case, that's the one. That's the one. He double attempt murder off and now a gun charge off. That's the one that brought me out. Because then if one man could get away 3 times and innocents are going to the jail, so you got to do something about it. High time.
I go back to you, Mr. Brackett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back to section 6, as you alluded in your previous comment. It says as follows: all persons are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to the equal protection of the law. That is to say, regardless of who you are, the system should not victimize you, especially if you're not part of the group that they are trying to target. That is to say, the people that are creating the mayhem. Take the existing powers of the state under the police department and go and arrest those people. That's the legal and lawful thing to do. Not to cast an SOE over the whole community as to say, well, you have no regards or consideration for those other people's rights. And then you turn around and say, well, in order to protect those people's rights who are innocent, you have to cause them inconvenience, and you got to trample on some of their rights because you're unwilling to deal with the real people that you know are creating the mayhem. Why? Because some of them are your friends, relatives, or your campaign workers in some of these same divisions. So you go, instead of a police officer, go and arrest them because then they always say they know who are the criminals. Well, go and arrest them. That's what you're empowered to do as a police, as a lawful police organization. Rather than going out there acting unlawful and illegal, beating up people, brutalizing unarmed civilians and other civilians who have nothing to do with the criminal activities. And now you're coming to try and change the constitution to take away their basic right and to empower the criminal, thuggish police officers, them who go out there and misbehave, instead of reining them in, so that you can then get the cooperation of the general populace to work with you to get after the real criminals. You prefer to victimize the general population of the country than to arrest and prosecute the criminals. And even when the criminals are arrested, sometimes their files disappear out of the very police department files. That on its face is another crime against the society, which is why sometimes when they go to court, they can't continue with the case because the evidence is disappeared. Why? It's not the same criminal going to the police department office and take out those files. Their family members and other individuals who are on the double take. They take their salary and they take a little something on the side to help somebody get off. These things are happening in our society. But then the victims must be the other members of the society that lives in the same area where the supposed criminals are living. In order to deal with those criminals, you won't victimize everybody else. How about out there and do your job, which is what you are being paid for? And then you turn around and when people are complaining about the illegal conduct and activities that you're trying to carry on to bastardize our constitution, you say, well, how can you do your job if we are stopping you from hard and pulling the constitution? It is not the constitution that's causing the problem, because all the laws that our governments have been going to the House and making, none of those laws have served the community well. They've always overreached and abused the powers that are not invested in them, which is why I say they are scofflaws and they are rogue. The minister is going to get up after he said that he wants to protect people's rights. And he's going to ask the cooperation of his other colleagues in cabinet to help facilitate him hard and pull the constitution and take out the protective parts of the constitution that protects our rights, and to leave us exposed to their shenanigans. That's crazy. Are you back, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Brackett.
You're
It
welcome,
goes
sir.
beyond that because we already had a draconian gun law that is unconstitutional. And here in the 13th Amendment that they are trying to pass as we speak, they are speaking about it will give the police powers to do warrantless search. But we already have that under Section 25 and 22 of the Drug and Gun Act. The police can enter any resident under reasonable articulable suspicion or stop and search anyone if they believe they have a firearm or they have drugs on them. So the law is there. The law is there for them to do the search. So
Mr.
what
Chairman?
is the difference? Just a minute, sir.
Yes, sir.
What
Yes, sir.
is the difference between the draconian gun law and the power to search through Section 25 and 22 of the Firearm Act and Drug Act to the present 13th Amendment they are trying to pass? There is no difference because they already have these. So I don't believe this 13th Amendment as they speak is about protecting no one because the police have those powers already. I believe it is discriminative and unconstitutional. Go ahead, Mr. Brackett.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In addition to that, as a fact, that the laws that they come and propose are onerous and discriminative. Even the very law that you made reference to just now, under the gun law that they have currently on the book, that law was also a bastardized part that they created and put in there, because some of the things that was put into that particular piece of legislation violated the Constitution. And then, according to the Constitution, to the extent that those violations occurred, they were supposed to have been deemed as null and void. Because in order for a police officer to come into your house and search, the very Constitution tells you how that is supposed to go about. So whenever they go about transgressing that particular part of the Constitution, they are acting unlawful, illegal, and as a rogue cabal. They are not acting as law, as decent, equitable law officers. They cannot and should not go into nobody's house with unchecked powers and with the idea that they can do what they want, beat up people, broke up their furniture, broke down their door, and walk away like if nothing happened. That is not that kind of craziness only happening in a police state. Because in other countries where police officers do cause harm or damage to civilians or to other people, the least the government they do out of basic decency is to repair the people in the place that they damage. And there's no reason for them to go in and damage people's place in the first thing. Because under the police law and authority vested in them from the state, they're empowered to arrest anyone that is suspected of a crime. But the problem is that when you mentioned just now about reasonable, articulable
suspicion,
RASP, a police officer just can't out of his head say that he had reasonable suspicion that somebody would have been committing a crime, had committed a crime, or was about to commit a crime. They overreach with that type of mindset and that type of approach. Because if that were to be true, it means then that any police officer can out of his own back pocket decide who he wants to aggress and turn around and say, well, he had a suspicion that they were about or could have been committing a crime. And that is not what is contemplated under the law. We have dealt with those as settled law before, in many cases, which is why most of the time, Mr. Dickey and other lawyers get their clients off. Why? Because these rogue officers and police departments keep repeating the same cycle. They commit the crimes with the idea that they're trying to stop crime from being committed, and then they turn around and expose the government and the people to liabilities. And now the president, I'm trying to measure my word, or I'm trying to make sure I don't say the wrong thing. I think I've seen Ms. Spitz. While I'm talking, could you bring in Ms. Spitz, Mr. Chairman? Thank you. Good night, Ms. Spitz.
Good night,
Good night,
Ms. Spitz.
gentlemen. Good night. Sorry for my lateness. I was at a meeting now, so I'm just
No problem. It's a
Better late than never.
public service, and we appreciate your presence whenever it's available.
Thank
Anyhow,
you.
I'm going to wrap up right now. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I was saying the government should not be in the habit, as they have been in the past, to be making these draconian laws and putting them on the book just because they think that it won't affect them as individuals. And it appears like they have no regards or consideration for the people that they know these things are going to affect. The mindset is like we have said. Some of them think that they can turn Belize into a El Salvador and be like a young Bukele. They don't understand the history of El Salvador and how many other past leaders of that country were assassinated, or how many other thousands of police officers and soldiers lost their lives on the street, battling what they had actually created themselves, which is to say, a gang-infested country. We don't have a gang-infested country yet.
Mr. Brackett,
Well
well said. I'm afraid, sir, that we're dealing with a no confidence government, one who cannot take care of its internal policy, So how do we expect them to take care of the external one, as in Guatemala?
They're selling us out as it is right now.
But good night again, Miss Pitts. And I want to
Good night,
just
Mr. Greg.
lead you to where we were.
Yes,
I
sir.
was speaking and I showed some clips about the present government 10 years ago when we had the opposition in government and one of their own, a police officer in Mr. Gino Peck, was caught up in the gun law and how they readily went ahead and tried to help him and even presenting an amendment that they filed to stop people from going to jail that they presume constitutionally their right was being violated. As part of that, they went on to say, and I want to point this clearly, that this same government from back then wanted the judges and magistrates to only give certain people bail, which again is a gross negligence and violation of Section 6 of our Constitution. I was speaking about the draconian and unconstitutional gun law and how they use it, along with Section 25 and 22 of the Drug and Firearm Act. And now we have the 13th Amendment, and they're talking about giving the police the power to do warrantless search. But they already have these things that they are using and misusing because many people, not the individuals that these laws were made for, was caught up in it. And Ms. Pitts, I want to prove that by this one clip before I go to you.
I live it firsthand. I am an owner of a firearm and have license for it. So apparently I had a problem with one of my competitors in business, and he knew that I had a licensed firearm. It can harm you at any point in time. Either you have a license or you don't have a licensed firearm. Why? Because the police does not, if they don't do the proper investigation, they can just put you right there in what you call it, peace house or detention center until for whatever hours, and then they take you to Hattiville. By that time, there's no investigation. It's just a report that they need. That's what happened to me. They just reported that I pulled up my firearm against someone, and police picked me up like some criminal. He just destroyed my reputation, my life, and I'm afraid of the country I live now because of the law. You know, if the law is a good law, but the people who run the law, just like a vehicle, you could have a Hilux 2014, and it's a good truck, but if you give the wrong person on the wrong highway, on the wrong weather, you know, it's deadly. So that happened with me.
I go to you, Ms. Fitz.
Good example.
Yes. Good night again. Basically, what you have described as draconian laws began in with the first, well, not began, but you saw it exposing itself in that era with the Crime Control and Criminal Justice Act. And when that came out, it was presented by the legislature, parliament, as though that was the response and the fix-all to the evils, especially the twin evils in crime, particularly drugs and illegal firearms and ammunition. So what that did, the law introduced a section which had to do with limitation on the right to bail. That meant then that anybody who would have been charged, whether guilty or not, with an offense under that statute it tied the hands of the magistrate at arraignment to exercise, which was the time-honored tradition of granting bail. Now, we call that the right to bail. So it fettered the hands of the magistrate, and instead one would have to go before a judge on a petition for bail. That sounds as though it might have been an answer, but right away, that was going up against the very Constitution and Westminster-style parliamentary democracy, one of the crucial, essential elements of which, in our rule of law, is the presumption of innocence. So then, as well, we would say that the function of bail and a magistrate before whom somebody is charged and would be able to plead guilty or not guilty would ordinarily admit the person to bail, and the function of bail was to secure the attendance of the person at bail, at his trial, or every time he or she is scheduled or would be scheduled to appear before the court until disposition or completion of the matter. Now, the court would have been able to put proper conditions of bail, and all those conditions were to secure the attendance of the defendant. Remember, the person is not a convict. The person is private citizen, and even strangers or visitors to our land were under this umbrella of our jurisprudence and tradition with respect to the right to bail. So it was put forward as, oh, we're just dealing with those criminals and this would take care of crime and so on. And then they put in certain things as to the prevalence of crime and so on, and as though it had nothing to do with the person. But what was the key feature of that was that it bound or fettered the hands. It's like a tie in the hands of the magistrate, the judicial hand to grant bail, which had continued for what we would call time immemorial, as a part threaded within that presumption of the right of innocence, as well as, so then there was that limitation, and people who would be faced with that, it was that the magistrate would not, within the first particular period of time, be able to admit, let's say 3 months, admit that person to bail. So what we were saying as attorneys and by way of people who are very zealous of the constitutional rights of each and every citizen and the protection of our fundamental and preservation of our fundamental rights and freedom, is that that was tantamount to premature incarceration. And especially for the poor person, especially, so it's as though you're presumed innocent, but by the time you would have been able to get bail, you would have been already incarcerated. Mm-hmm. And for the poor person especially, if you could not have access to counsel, and let me tell you, legal aid, as far as I understand, would not have been presented these cases, right? Or they would not have been their priority. I really would have to check if they do operate to look after such. So basically you had that. Then you have the frustration. You have people who might have been before the courts for the first time. They are now deprived, and they could flip the switch from somebody who is a law-abiding citizen, or even somebody who would have heard for the first time. Then the person is incarcerated, in prison, locked down, and you have all the ills of that person then is in prison, if the person is a breadwinner or even a student, the person and his family would be deprived of livelihood. There would be the shame and scandal. Incidentally, and I don't want to stray, but mention was made of a policeman who I think was before the court. If I remember it rightly, it seemed to have been that the policeman might have been found with prohibited or illegal guns and or ammunition, and I think the colloquial was that the child found it under the bed. Now, if a policeman does not have in his or her possession duly issued and signed out firearm and ammunition, then with respect to that, the policeman who is off his duty or even on his duty, who has other than what has been properly assigned to him and recorded as assigned to him, then that policeman is just like the other citizen who is in contravention of the law. In one instance, I believe that a banker went and spoke on behalf of a policeman. I think it was a policeman who was living on Curacao Street in Belize City. And I believe the head of one of the major Christian denomination church as well went to speak for him. But if my memory served me correct, somehow it was convenient that those who had been pressing these draconian laws without mercy against other citizens were able to say and to rationalize within the law that such and such should not apply to that person. When this law came out, the Crime Control and Criminal Justice Act, when we were representing before the court persons, it was very difficult, and you had to really, it turned upside down the presumption of innocence. And it is, we were where we were before the court, and the individual person who, those matters were usually dealt with, what you would say, urgently. And they were dealt with traditionally on Fridays, although any day of the week, any time of night or day, as you all would be well aware, and we've dealt with this, if somebody is wrongfully detained or extrajudicially or extra-legally without the law, outside of the law, held, one had the old common law, and within our parliamentary democracy, the writ of habeas corpus, where without a lot of formalities, without having to file and pay for filing and take your time for it to be set, the writ of habeas corpus, basically habeas corpus, for those who deal with Latin, boil down to have the body.
Miss
So
Pitts, if I
an
may,
officer of the court.
Miss Pitts, if I may, because you brought it up, we had this discussion just recently with a state of emergency where this young man was banned from seeing a judge. And you brought up that, which is one of the utmost thing that you can present to the court. But I'm saying this to say, we don't want to put aside that it is the same present government from back then was fighting against these draconian measures, especially when it came to that police officer, Mr. Peck. And now to see they are doing the reverse cycle and trying to come back with this same law that they were against and trying to now use it to their advantage against the people. And before I go to you, Mr. Brackett, let's hear Mr. Bradley from back then.
Let me
Our liberties as citizens of this country is being watered down, is being whittled, because while you're entitled to your freedom of movement, to your right to be free, they have been passing laws to say, oh, first of all, magistrate can have no discretion to give one man bail for the first 3 months if he commits this offense, that, and he don't commit the offense, it's only an allegation against him. So that these laws which are interfering with your right to be free is packing up the jail, is violating your right to be treated as innocent until you are proven guilty, is violating your right to have bail. Bail is not some kind of privilege, bail by law is a right. You're entitled to your freedom. And what has been happening in front of our very eyes, a long list of offenses, the rulers are making it that the magistrate can't give bail. If you can't afford a lawyer to go to the Supreme Court, you have to stay in jail. Men are in there 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, can't have a trial. How did we reach that stage? 800 years ago, they were putting an end to those things.
And there, again, and I need to stress this, what Mr. Bradley said is 100% truth, because we just had a young man who spent 21 years in the Belize prison without going to trial. What an inhumane treatment.
Crazy.
So we know exactly
I just want to say something though, because you
Go ahead,
see,
Ms. Bates.
with due respect, Vicky Bradley was the one who did the preface to that constitutional exercise that they're going around with right now. And I was saying from then at Swift Hall that none of them who was presenting was going to the fact and explaining the 1,000, not 800 years, 1,000-year tradition of the rule of law. And they were there foisting it upon the people on the pretext that, look, what you got, that didn't come out of you, so it would be you, the people, instead of explaining to the people that that came out of a tradition which had to be fought for and people died for. But I want to say something here. Allow me, please, Mr. Brackett, because I want you all to understand this plainly. It's not, Mr. Greg, just a matter that this side now, they try, though, where they may stand against the last time, which, as you would say, they tell on themselves. I want Belizeans to have this absolutely clear.
I'm with you on that, Ms.
Worse
Bates.
than that, because you have to see now, it's where they are doing a constitutional exercise to experiment with and change the constitution. And in addition, but worse than that, the worst part, not to be understated, it's not just 100% what Mr. Bradley said, it's to the 1,000 power. You are now taking Crime Control and Criminal Justice Act, where you sought to fetter the jurisdiction of the court or bind the court's hand, imprison people for up to 3 times 30 days or 31 or 29 days, right? So for 3 months without bail. But what is bad is that when you take the law, remember, I wanted to say that, I didn't bring it out, that when we were going before the courts for bail petitions, one judge said very early, I think it was Justice Dennis Barrow, that basically constitutional challenge could and should be made. Okay? Why I'm saying this now, look at it very cleanly. You can't get mesmerized by what is happening. You have to put it into sharp focus. Whereas you had, remember I keep saying in our legal system, people have to understand the hierarchy of laws and legal sources. So the Constitution is supreme, right? Then you have statutes, you have statutory instruments, then you have regulations or the regulations or SIs, subsidiary legislation. Then you have case law or judicial precedent, just stare decisis. Then you have books of authority and experts, and persuasive authorities can come out of the case law, out of other jurisdictions too. And then you have treaty. And treaty is at the base because you have sovereignty of nations. In civil law, and I don't mean civil in a good sense, but in these countries which have that system where they rule by decree, the Constitution is either absent or they rip it apart. And you said something, I believe, you would see featured in those countries, common in those countries, right on our Central American mainland. I like to say that Belize is a Commonwealth, Westminster-style democratic island situate on Central American mainland, but in the heart of the Caribbean. So all we have is that has been what has insulated us from the internecine coup of state, coup d'etats, the rule by decree, the despots, the autocracy, and so on. Now, when they are putting this or trying to, because I am saying that the people will not let it happen. When they are now moving and saying that it's an amendment of the Constitution, they are flexing to say, you know, guess what? Some people are confused and say, maybe you never saw bad because the previous government may they do it, or maybe they may try to fool us, right? They are flexing, but they are going way, way down. It's a coup de grace, a fatal blow to our Constitution and our fundamental rights, freedom and liberty of the person, conscience, freedom of movement, presumption of innocence, the right to remain silent. What they're doing by attempting to put it in the Constitution is that they've actually drafted this constitutional amendment. They're there, you know. They are bald-faced and they are not playing around. They've drafted it, and by attempting to put it in the Constitution, they want to see what the lean back will be. And if the Judas goats will allow the herd to follow. But I don't want to miss. When you're putting it or attempting to put it in the Constitution, you have a ground change. If it were, you know, when you deal with the earth and the tectonic plates and so on, it's a revolution. And when I say that the proposed legislation and those who are presented it, and I said that at Swift Hall, it is a revolt against the people, the Constitution, and the country of Belize, because renouveau from the French, something new. That's the root of the word revolution. I believe I'm not a linguist, but when I did political science at UWI, I said, oh gosh, that is why sometimes if you're somebody, when the Haitian Revolution started, one person might give you a later date and one might see an earlier date, right? So you remove the old established order and you replace it with something new. People expend guns and noise and battle, but the pen is mightier, it's more insidious than the sword. And it's easy for them to get that through. Sorry, Mr. Brackett, I really apologize, but I just believe that this is one area where I want to be very, very clear in sharing. So what they're doing now in putting the courts there, they're really abrogating, or not just, Dickie Bradley seemed to use the word whittling down. Whittle, to my mind, is when, you know, like when a wood carver gently starts to carve and scrape, and he's careful that he doesn't erode, right? So he's farming gently, but he's trying to keep his vision and that substance under. Take, for example, Belizeans will be able to get this one, because with Belizeans, you have to use some clear metaphors and things that they can see. You see the sleeping giant, the natural national monument near Cebu? Look at the sleeping giant. Now, when I pass, I try not to look. It hurts me. It's like they have literally gouged and dug out the very belly of the sleeping giant, so that you don't recognize it. And soon it will be no more. And you know what? When we don't stand up for those national and metaphoric monuments, which mean something as a patrimony and sensitivity, that is why when we have a statue in Central Park and the old people go say, even when it was covered before, they say, who they think that? That is the Heil Hitler salute. Anybody would have gotten sense to know, you know, put no statute like that anywhere in Belize. There are some countries internationally where that is illegal, you know, the mere semblance. That is why I'm saying, no, this law, this lockstep law that they want, lockstep Nazi, then there will be things like dissent. And just let me finish with this. When you are putting BDF, which BDF is the function of a Belize Defense Force, is as sole as to defend the territory against an enemy from abroad. A coastal guard is to deal with maritime areas, and you have your law of the sea and your jurisdiction, and they can aid, like the BDF, in rescuing people. A police's function is as keepers of the peace and upholding of the law. The court's function, the separation of, when you are putting these three things together, it's not a triumvirate, it's a three-headed monster, and it's an instrument of politicians. And the worst thing about it is that the politicians don't know whether they walk Belize and even themselves into, because they lead the way. This thing is clear, you know. One day they could wake up and then say National Security Council will say, we want to designate. You think that joke? We want to force the Governor General, and we could designate Belmopan as a special area and lock up the people and so on, and in one fell swoop. Is that how we, and I explain it that way at Swiftfall, but I didn't say that, right? But you don't want to make it look like you tell us so and so on the come to heal or else. I won't say anything more tonight, thanks.
Based on what you say, Ms. Fitz, and we have heard before that the discriminative way of this 13th Amendment that will violate basically the oppressed Black Belizeans who already don't have jobs, who already don't have nothing to eat, who can't even get a legal representation. This law is being put into place, and once it is put there, how can anybody that don't have money challenge the Constitution? Because this is what that is about. And I go to you, Mr. Brackett.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would like to read here the next section of what I started reading just now, which was section 6, subsection 1, I read, and then now I want to read subsection 2. It says, if any person is charged with a criminal offense, then, unless the charges is withdrawn for whatever reason, the case shall be afforded a fair hearing within a reasonable time by an independent and impartial court established by law. What they are now attempting to do is to take away the powers of the court or marginalize the powers of the court by these second-hand, non-legitimate legal and for the fact that they say so, that it's legal, but that co-opt or usurped the powers of the court. And the court should be an equal branch of our government with its own legitimate authority under the Constitution. And it should not be hauled and pulled by the legislator or by the executive, or for that matter of fact, by the rest of the government. Because the legislature have its own powers and limitations on it. The executive have its own powers and limitations on it. The judiciary have its own powers and limitations on it. And they are all supposed to work hand in hand to serve the interests of governance. But what we are having right now is a bastardization of the judiciary in terms of the government wanting to dictate what the judiciary should or shouldn't do. They want to constrain the judiciary. And they want to tell the judiciary, as a matter of fact, under the Separation of Powers Act, according to them, we have a super legislator and a super executive and a marginalized judiciary. And that is what's happening in our country currently. It says every person who is charged with a criminal offense under paragraph A shall be presumed to be innocent until he is proven to be guilty or he pleads guilty. And under paragraph B, it says those persons who are charged with an offense shall be informed as soon as reasonable possible in a language that they understand or he or she understands of the nature and peculiarity of the offense that they are charged with, as well as they shall be given adequate time and facilities for the preparation of his defense, which is to say they must be allowed to consult with their lawyer as well, and shall be entitled to defend himself before the court before the court in person or at his own expense by a legal practitioner of his own choice. But you can't go before any of our courts to try and plead your own case because you're not accorded the same privileges that is accorded to a member of the bar and or an officer of the court, such as a lawyer. If you as a single individual is accused by the police or by the state of a crime and you don't have money to pay for a lawyer and you can't get free services from any lawyer that is willing to volunteer and do a pro bono for you, then like you said, they sit in jail sometimes for years, as Mr. Dickey pointed out in the tape that was broadcast. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Brackett.
You're welcome,
As
sir.
I said before, this law is discriminating against a certain portion of Belizean people in violation of Section 6 of our Constitution. And I will prove it here tonight. Let's hear from this other video how discrimination is alive and living well. In fact, it will prove that the 90 days that they have spoken about when it comes to that class misfits does not happen to each and every individual.
Because I have seen people arrested for firearm offenses who have come here and within a week they have gotten their bail. So I don't know that the law makes it mandatory unless that law was recently changed. But I'm sure that I have seen a few persons who have come to prison for firearm related offenses, whether it's unlawful, whether it's unlicensed ammunition or firearm, and I've seen them get out of here within a week. The 90 days, I cannot recall that it's right across the board, and how they do it to get out in 1 week's time or 2 weeks' time or 21 days' time, I have no clue. So I don't want to speak on that. I would literally have to go into the penal files for all of these inmates that have come to prison for firearm-related offense, and hone in on what is really the picture. But cursorily, I can tell you that I don't see that applying to just about everybody. So I think there's a little bit of a stretch there, in my estimation.
Excellent. Last.
All right.
My goodness.
So there,
Hold on, Mr. Brackett. Hold on, Mr. Brackett. My goodness. You understand the dangerous situation we're in? We
yes,
have the
I
person
do.
who seems to be the director of, and maybe they should change the name back to His Majesty's Prison, Holby Foundation Central Prison, but it's a prison of Belize, where nobody can enter without a warrant, or nobody should be held there without a warrant from the magistrate. How on earth can the keeper of the prison or the director, or whatever
Double
Mr.
standards.
Maria's position is, say he seems to be saying things are a stretch? He seems to feel that he can dictate, or he has the luxury to say it's all right because he hardly see anybody there for more than 3 days. So like he seemed to be out in space as to where this 90-day come from. Well, guess what? Mr. Murillo has to be reminded. How can you have somebody there who don't even understand the fundamental right and freedom of people under the Constitution? You know that false imprisonment. If you hold somebody illegally for 1 minute or a few seconds, that could be false imprisonment, unlawful imprisonment, unconstitutional detention.
That is correct.
And you're saying that, you know, the Constitution is saying 48 hours when you are detaining before you take before a magistrate. Even the police, the Constitution has limited it that the son of a come up and go down more than what? 2 times. The only thing is if it says a public holiday and bank holiday, but the Constitution does say save and accept public and bank holiday. I think it says something as soon as can be before a magistrate. And remember, we keep mentioning habeas corpus. How dare anybody to feel that because people go, and you know, some people out there, some people just treacherous, you know, and ill-advised, and then I have some political flunkies. How can people say that attorneys will make more money? Well, firstly, in civilized countries and Barbados and all these common law jurisdictions, people see attorneys like other professions. You would have sacrificed for your profession, and you have a right to work, and you have a right to provide your service and to earn from that. And as well, a lot of attorneys are amicus curiae, friends of the court, and you have your traditional robe with a little pouch, and a lot of us do pro bono work on some or at lower levels. Really and truly, attorneys make more money when you have this foolishness that people are deprived of their right to bail. But Mr. Murillo, I am shocked That
did
you
he not?
understand what it is.
Miss Fitz,
Miss
was it
Fitz, what
wasn't
I do
wasn't that?
believe, just a
Wait, make
second,
I
Mr.
ask you a
Brackett.
question?
What I do believe you were speaking about is he cannot say that the 90 days is mandatory because some people come and get in and they leave before the 90 days.
Mr.
So they are
Brackett, but
treating
Miss
some
Fitz,
people as
Greg,
special
no, you
treatment.
don't treat them as special. That is wrong. As an
Miss
officer
Fitz,
of the
Miss
court,
Fitz,
I would say that what they have, I disagree with the law that it's unconstitutional. The Crime Control and Criminal Justice Bill
That is
is
correct.
act
no,
as it is.
Okay, Mr.
But
Brackett, let
no.
me go to Mr. Brackett, Miss Fitz. Let me hear what he has to say. Go ahead, sir.
Was he the same gentleman that somewhere I recall denied you access to a client at the prison?
well,
Just a question. I have
well,
something that I want to say, but I just wanted the answer to that question.
Mr. Brackett, I will tell you something, Mr. Brackett, right? In the good old days, as attorneys, we are also officers of the court, right?
Exactly.
When we visit a prison, we go there as officers of the court and professionals for our clients, but we have a higher office as officers of the court. And we ought to be, is that accommodated? The prisoner who is detained should have access to us at any time.
That's what I
For a
just
little
read.
convenience, I might
That
put
is what I just
certain
read
times.
just now.
But
That's what the
when they
Constitution
start to
says.
say that you have to make an appointment and you need this and you need to say why. Yes, Mr. Brackett, I should have my answer shortly, right? There was a time, and other attorneys have experienced it, when they have interfered the prison system unlawfully, putting
Can I?
a wedge between attorneys. But interesting that you asked that, Mr. Leonard, because I want to say, you notice
Can
me
I?
not mention Bukele, but you notice what Bukele did over there? I want to tell you no. My
Miss
simple
Fitz,
answer to that Bukele nonsense is
wait,
that
man.
those who are acculturated to Bukele and in a government and in a private citizen we think that are right and so, with one man they lock up people and no access to law, the courts and so on, they have for them problem. Then the police stayed long time, and those who want to see those features in our system, not enter the cancer here. You
Two
are
May I?
different,
free to
May
leave.
I?
two
Hold on
different,
for me, man. Hold on for me,
two
please.
different
Our
systems, Miss Fitz.
constitution guarantees a fundamental
Hold
freedom,
on, Mr. Brackett.
freedom of movement, and it's freedom to leave the country, provided another country wants you there. As Miss Emma would have said, and Miss, you know, we are saying to Mr. Golson, you want another country, the other country need you. You're free to go. You're welcome to leave. But that
Miss
which you're
Fitz,
seeking to
no.
do will not be introduced here.
But Miss Fitz, we're dealing with two different nations, two different countries, one that is a republic and
Uh,
one that is a
uh,
democratic.
Greg,
I go to you, Mr. Brackett.
I would like to read Section 16 of the Constitution of Belize. Subsection 1 reads as follows. Subject to the provisions of subsection 4, 5, and 7 of this Section 16, no law shall make any provision that is discriminatory either of itself or in its effect. Subsection 2 reads, subject to the provisions of Section 6, 7, and 8 of this section, no person shall be treated in a discriminatory manner by any person or authority. So that's what our Constitution is telling these jackals and scofflaw that we have as so-called government officials, that they are precluded from violating the Constitution, but yet they come with this stupid Amendment 13 as if they don't know that there's a Constitution and they haven't read it and they don't know what it speaks about. But they want to use their supermajority in the House to create an illegal bastardized law that's violative of the Constitution and that should have no merits on its face because the Constitution says that any other law made by these authorities, even though they are authorized to make law, those laws that are made that are inconsistent with the Constitution are null and void. And they have to make laws that are within the bounds of the constitutional frame. They cannot come with the separation of powers violations for the legislator to tell the court that they can't accept no bail for nobody, or how to run the court system, or what is right and what is wrong. That's the purview of the court. But the present changes that these people are trying to make is that they want to take away the authority from the court and give it to 5 people that the Prime Minister is going to nominate for them to decide whether or not the court is following the Constitution the way the government wants it to be interpreted. Not according to law, but according to the government wishes. And that's the problem that we're having right now. And they're trying to take us deeper into that rabbit hole. And most people are oblivious. They say, okay, well, the government is authorized to make laws. They have a super majority. They have more than 75%. So they can make just about any law they want. Because the poor people are not being taught that the government have its limitations. Are you back, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Brackett. And now we get to the good part. This is the part I like when I always say and they sure. They always tell on themselves. And I want you to hear how good they are at telling on themselves. Let's hear the Minister of Police.
When you are swept up from this house that an ammunition may have been found, you are taken to the Queen Street Police Station and you are held there for 48 hours. That is your first detention. Many families don't realize that after that 48 hours, you will spend another 14 days. So that is just the start of your vacation, really. It's not 48 hours you'll spend, it's 14 days. So it doesn't matter if it's 1, 2, 3. It doesn't matter if it's a grandfather, a grandmother, a high school child who may have CXCs the following day. The law doesn't care. It will actually then take you to the magistrate's court. And because of the way the law is structured, the magistrate has absolutely no discretion. So any offense under the Firearm Act, we're talking whether it is an unlicensed ammunition, we're talking whether you are a license holder. If you're a license holder and somebody goes and makes an allegation, oh boy, Mike pull a gun for me, it could just be totally malicious. But the law does not care. So the first thing that will happen to you is that you will be sent up, and it's a mandatory 14 days that you have to spend there. Many poor people who cannot afford an attorney will not spend 14 days, they will spend 90 days because that is what the law says. So it is different, it is discriminatory if you ask me. It discriminates against poor people because they can't afford to get a lawyer to get them out of jail in 14 days. And I mean, just the mere fact that you are taking somebody to prison right off the bat, that to me shows that there is a direct contravention of somebody's constitutional rights, because the Constitution says at clause 6 that you are presumed innocent until you are proven guilty. Now, the last time I checked, being sent to jail is not a treat. That's a punishment. You're treating people like criminals. So right off the bat, you are not presumed innocent. You're going to be sent to the place where criminals live. You're going to be sent to Hattieville prison. So that whole presumption of innocence is no longer there. You are now automatically treated as guilty. There is no longer this opportunity that you can go tell a magistrate, you know what, I just was visiting the premises. I had no knowledge that an ammunition was in that attic. The magistrate cannot hear your cries. They cannot hear your pleas for mercy. They cannot be lenient with you, because the law, as amended in 2008 under the Crime and Control Act, the law as amended says the magistrate now cannot grant you bail so long as you're charged under the Firearms Act.
Is this the same man that wants to bring the 13th Amendment?
Yes.
This is how they tell on themselves. Now imagine.
That's why I call them criminals.
I go to you, Mr. Brackett. Now imagine telling on themselves.
Sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. That's why I call them criminals. That's why I call them scofflaws. That's why I call them jackals and hyenas. You know, people think that I'm just trying to be gratuitous in my use of words. No, I'm trying to describe their devious conduct. And yet, after he can expound what he did say just now on the airwaves, so long ago, as a lawyer and as a well-schooled lawyer and as a competent lawyer, when he was in opposition, he was willing to use his skills and his knowledge and his forbearance to point out the errors of the laws. Yet he's going to come now and try to take away people's constitutional rights under these onerous laws that he is trying to implement. He needs to be flagged because a lot of people are getting more than flagged. They're going to jail, they're becoming more hardened criminals, and then they don't have a chance to get a job because they have a police record, and the whole of their lives is destroyed, and their children's lives, and their other family lives. While these jackals are feasting at the trough, getting richer and richer every day. They go into politics without any money in their pocket, and if they win a term, they come out as millionaires. And if they win a second term, they come out as multi-millionaires. And when they retire with a pension for the rest of their life. While the people that they make these heinous crimes against, you know, these bastardized laws, they break the Constitution, and they cause this kind of harm to people. Those people are left with the rest of their life messed up. Okay? And it's not because these jackals don't know, as I'm saying. No, I want to change the whole Constitution. You know, this little part that they are coming with is Amendment 13. If they were so serious about the PCC Act and the effort that they were supposed to be doing under the PCC, and they believed in it, they could have just as well tossed this 13th Amendment into that effort. But they're coming with this little piece. They're going to push this little piece through. It's going to be unlawful, unconstitutional, violative of the Constitution, and people are going to be hurt by it. And unless some of those people have money to challenge the government and succeed at getting themselves vindicated, then those laws are going to remain there, and a lot of people are going to be hurt by it, and the police is going to be empowered to commit crimes under the color of law and to be exculpated because of the same onerous laws that these jackals are creating. Because they're saying in the law that the police can come to your house now and search your house, you know, without any cause or reason. You're just deemed as someone that they have an interest in or want to victimize or penalize. For example, politicians now could take the law and send police officers to go after their political enemies, you know, create mischief. But finally, because we're almost at the end of my last chance to talk right now, I'll say this.
Let's go to 140, Mr. Brackett.
Huh? Yes, sir.
Let's
yes,
go
sir.
to 140.
Yes, sir. You could. I just wanted us to get this thought out of my head before I forget it, you know? And that is that the current government is flashing its supermajority in the face of the people and trying to impress on the people that they have a right to make just about any law, including making law that violates the Constitution. And no government is empowered to violate the Constitution. Belizeans need to recognize that as a reality. The fact that they go ahead and do so with impunity doesn't mean that what they're doing is legal, lawful, or constitutional.
Thank you. Before I go to you, Ms. Pitts, let's hear the Attorney General telling on himself, the one who is supposed to make sure that the laws in this country are made to suit the people. Let's listen to the Attorney General.
His constitutional right not to be arrested, not to be detained, not to lose his freedom unless there's reasonable suspicion. That right was violated. There was no reasonable suspicion for this man to have been arrested and detained and carted off of prison for 38 days. He didn't have the ability to secure an attorney, and so he had to wait 38 days until his family could pull together some monies to be able to secure an attorney to obtain bail in the Supreme Court. That is an injustice. That is something which happens on a day-to-day basis, and Mr. Major has taken the brave challenge to bring this matter to court. We've also challenged his right to be presumed innocent. The law under consideration also makes it mandatory that, look, in addition to deeming you to be in possession of illegal firearm and ammunition, you have to now go to a court and then prove your innocence. So Major went through a full trial. He was able to be acquitted, but a citizen should not be put through that where they would have to obtain the service of an attorney, because as you know, a lay person having to go through a trial on his or her own may not be able to put forward the necessary evidence as the necessary questions to be able to establish certain things. So these are things which ordinary citizens under existing law are still faced with, and therefore the case is an extremely important case, and it is one which is, in my humble opinion, one of the more important constitutional challenges that have been made in recent years.
And yet he's acting like a jackal right now.
These people all know this, but yet they want to favor the 13th Amendment. Ms. Spitz, I go to you.
What you have is, you see, when I have been saying that the people of Belize play hopscotch, you see how that play out? One jump, then you jump back like you play a child's game, right? Aimlessly back and forth, right? So you think it's just child's game, it's all right, it's a little recreation or diversion. Then people, they play Chinese checkers in the sense of, then they go across on board and they try filling in certain things without any regard for the seriousness. But worse than that, then they play snakes and ladders, because snakes and ladders have to do with treachery. And as the old man, Captain Nick Sanchez has said, he has said that you have to look to certain people, he said, and when you look at them, understand that you deal with snake, not just snake, but ptarmigan. I want to know, he said not just ptarmigan, but whether there was one, jumping ptarmigan. And that is what, when you, my thing is very simple, right? I don't know, from the word go, I could call out against, when I say this so-called Peace People Constitution Committee, it's a farce. But Belizeans like speaking spokey. This is one when no law, no understand law, no read law, could chair. Other ones could chair on. They get some private citizens, oh, they're happy to be a part of this process. The Constitution deal with freedom from discrimination, protecting against discrimination on the basis of whether race, ethnic origin, age, whatever, sex, and so on. But they're allowing themselves to be met. They meet with the Mayans here, they want to meet with the Creole, they want to meet with the Garifuna. I have said that we have a constitution. You know, this constitution is near perfect. And this one we could find in a one volume, but it's not limited to this. When you understand the constitution that we have, the Westminster style parliamentary democracy, the British Constitution is not one written document, you know. It will be found in books and books, and as students of constitutional law, which every student is required to do, and constitution law is your mantra for life, you know, your mandate, your protection. So you'd say in the lay society, not the spiritual, you have your spiritual Bible, but this is your lay Bible with your protection. So even the US, you will see the US, they were a common law country until the revolution, and they have a constitution. And remember, when we talk about the basic structured doctrine, a constitution is not meant to be bothered with. No, I just want to say this because I said it off here when somebody brought it up, but I think it's a good illustration to share as well. You see, when our constitution the law was coming out of the dark ages and advancing, there was a time when several hundred years ago, anybody could accuse somebody of being a witch or a sorcerer or a wizard. You all understand how that was worked out? You had what you call trial by testing. So the person would be taken and the person would be thrown in a body of water, the accused. And if the person drowned, the person was declared innocent. If the person survived and did not drown, the accused was taken and tied to a tree and burnt as at stake because the person was guilty. That's how bad it was. Then in the Caribbean, you had New Jewel movement and some other thing between Guyana and Grenada when they experimented with some other constitutions. And you know, when the revolution started and certain other problem, they were happy to run back to a Westminster style. And in our history, when they want me to look for deal with heads of agreement, they thought that Belize would be caught with its pants down because they were selling out Belize lock, stock, and barrel for the treacherous regime across the border. But thank God, when it was thought we didn't have a constitutional conference, we were able to adopt the British model. And men like the jurist later on, Eddie Lang, brilliant, world-class brilliance. Hubert Elringham, Philip Golson, my father, others. They were able to say to the British, we don't want that associate statehood, we don't want the 13 heads of agreement. And the people of Belize, the students, the Youth Popular Front, the Guild, the Association of Tertiary and Secondary Graduates, the Guild of something, the Association, of Professional and Technical Engineers, the Chamber of Commerce, cross-section of people. When the charge was led from Belize City, and these people don't forgive Belize City, because they know this is where the brain trust is, they know this is where the fortitude is, they know this is where all the great decisions, the parliamentary decisions were taken, and they want to root out our people. These people who are pushing the law, some of them might look like we, but when they look like we, they're not Judas goat. They always take the bearded one, and I said before, when you want to execute sheep, but the others, they're racist, but if they do their DNA, they will find out and dilute her. But basically what you have to understand, one lot of them in the parliament right now, they're more a culture to Bukele. Their navel string not really barrier. They might happen to ban you physically. They're not salt of the earth Belizeans. When Hubert Elrington made it say that black Belizeans start to, and call him dumb. Hubert was saying something else too, long ago. When this crime thing was, he said we have to deal with it head on. 30 years ago. Who for whatever, who for whatever. Then I'll finish by saying this. These merchants of misery, these jankro buzzards who are cancel our people out. Where are the special areas? When they have chance to declare the special areas, when certain things they drop, I honestly know gun the manufacture in any area in a Belize City, and the biggest building I see, we have one biggest sign where they sell weapons and ammunition and might be under a license, show up like one storefront in a Belmopan. I felt like, man, gosh, look what for we culture come to. We as a people I think one lawyer put it at the place, some words to the effect that they have removed the baton, or we've gone from the baton the police using now to putting a cannonball in this law in the hands of the police against our people.
Thank you, Ms. Bates. We're at that 140. I don't know if Mr. Brackett wants to press a little bit further.
I'll leave that to you, Mr. Chairman. It's your show tonight, sir.
Well,
How you feel
let's
about
see,
it?
because this is really important. This is really important for us to press on for a bit, because I want the people at home and abroad to hear from what Ms. Pitts just said and the Buckley type of mentality. Let's hear what Mr. Vasquez had to say before I come to you, Mr. Brackett. It's very, very important.
Okay, sir.
Confidence when you have gone and say, either just like the Babylon there, just lock them up. Obviously, the UDP tried this with preventative detention in 2008, which also would have required a constitutional amendment. They quickly backed off. The opposition at the time was vocal against it. This is sinister, it is misconceived, and it is the product of diseased thinking in governance. Courtney, you were at the Comstat, or Channel 7 was at the Comstat, I think Joe Marie went.
Yeah.
At the Comstat last week. Aren't murders down by 40%? Aren't we down 17 right now, year to year? We are on trend, and one murder is too much. I will never say, well, the numbers look good. The numbers are always bad, once it's more than zero.
Yeah.
I understand the toll that murder takes on a family and on a community. I just want to say, though, hasn't the murder rate been trending down? Isn't that what we boast about every year?
Yes.
That we're keeping it on 100, we're keeping it on 90, right? Hasn't that been successful? Aren't we now on a downward trend? We are. I've witnessed it. We're all grateful for it. I hope it trends to zero. But this year, we are on trend to have, and hopefully it holds, 80. 80 would be incredible. We haven't seen that kind of number in over 20 years. So I'm saying policing is working. But what you have is a government that wants a cheap political win at the expense of poor, mostly black communities in Belize.
Yeah.
That's what it is, right? You have a government that just wants a quick win. See, when they do something about crime, no.
Yeah.
It's you all who boast, and truthfully, that crime is down. Major crime is down. My goodness, major crime is down. I think major crime has been a negative number. No, I don't accept their major crime numbers, but and I have a reason for that. But I'm just saying, crime is trending down. We have to accept that even if you implement this, you cannot stop all crime. So all these knee-jerk idiots who say, you see that shooting last week? If we had this new constitutional amendment, no, sir. Once you have a society flooded with guns, and we have such a society where guns are easily gotten in Guatemala. You can go to Arenal, walk across the border, and buy guns.
Yeah.
Once you have a society flooded with guns, you have a society riddled with danger. And that's what we have. We have a dangerous society because guns are everywhere. So no matter how many measures you choose to simplify, calling an SOE, you will never, regrettably, eliminate that threat. Once you have social despair and social breakdown, and we have that. And that's the problem that we need to address. But what they're trying to do is embrace a soft Bukele.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Right? They are trying to go for a soft Bukele because they want to show off. And it's just, you know, it's just, it's a Belize City thing, and that's why I feel a way about it. Right? It's like, it's saying that let's turn Belize City.
Right.
Into the example of how we go and Bukele Pane.
Right.
You can't bring Bukele up. do not try to bring it. But they are seduced by the simplicity. That is an authoritarian measure. You know what it is?
Yeah.
If you put money in a jail with no prospect of coming out, then they say, no, we know they do that.
No charges, no front of a judge, nothing. Yeah, just rounding them up.
They are trying to be macho like Bukele. We are the bad man for crime there. No, sir, you cannot do that. And to say that, well, it's a National Security Council who will have to make a determination. The National Security Council is comprised of people who say yes to the Prime Minister, who cannot say no. I don't want to disrespect them because they're security professionals, but none of them can tell the Prime Minister, no, sir. The National Security Council is appointed by the Prime Minister. Any body that is appointed by the Prime Minister is not able to say no to the Prime Minister or the political directorate, as the case may be. And the Prime Minister appoints the National Security Council. The 13th
I'd like to make a statement in regards to that last clip. And the statement would be that the Constitution of Belize is different from the Constitution of El Salvador. Okay? And people need to recognize that and stop playing the fool like if they don't know that that is the case. Bukele is ruling as the president, head executive of the country of El Salvador. And his constitution is different than the constitution that we have in Belize, under which Mr. Briceño, as Prime Minister of Belize, has to abide. But he refused to abide and refused to give fidelity to the Constitution of Belize and pretend that it doesn't exist. And if it does exist to any of them, it's only as a piece of toilet paper. That is the reality with which these scofflaws relate to their constitutional fidelity and their constitutional responsibilities. You cannot take people in Belize and do what Mr. Bukele is doing, because that is why the government is losing these cases, and which is why they are trying to change the constitution now to make it more pliable to their nefarious conduct. If it's illegal, it's illegal. If it's unlawful, it's unlawful. It violates the Constitution, it violates the Constitution. You cannot make an illegal law become legal while violating the Constitution with that same law. But enough Belizean people believe that that is possible, and therefore that's why they're being bamboozled and hoodwinked. I'll read the last part of the Section 16 of Section 1, and it says, subject to the provisions of Section 4, Section 5, and Section 7 of this section, no law shall make any provisions that is discriminatory either of itself or in its effect. And that is what these gentlemen are attempting to do, to make laws that are discriminatory and are violative of the Constitution. And because they are making the laws, and under the guise that they are authorized to make laws, they give the impression then that they're supposed to make just about any law, including making other law that the Constitution classifies as null and void. And I think that is the end of tonight's program. Ms. Spitz?
Yes.
Do you have a last word? Do you have a last word for both?
Basically, Belizeans have seen the writing on the wall. They have to read it clear. They have to take a clear position. There will be no walking this back. And this is not, sometimes we would say that a law that is produced or an action that is being taken will take us along the slippery slope. This is not a slippery slope. We're at the edge, and once they push over that edge, there will be no turning back.
Thank you very
They're
much.
attempting to subjugate the very rule of law. And look at it, we already don't have proper security of tenure of judges, and people are still crying for true judicial independence. But some people still have the notion
We have gotten to
that
the end of the Ms. Spitz? We
sorry.
have gotten to the end of the program for tonight.
Oh, okay. Good night. Yes.
We're at 1:50 and we're supposed to have been at 1:30 when we cut off.
Yes, sir. Good night.
Thanks, Miss Fitz. I don't have to say what happened. You can figure it out, figure a speech. But thank you for coming on. It was a good, open conversation. And I think we presented more than enough to the people of Belize at home and abroad. And I want to thank those who look at our show and those who look at it after in their spare time. But again, Ms. Spitz, I think we had more than explain it. Also, Mr. Brackett, the reading from the Constitution is of most importance to educate our people. So to you, the people at home and abroad, I would like to say good night and thank you again.